Hello and welcome back to our channel where we make law school easier. So you've probably heard some of the rules of contract law before: offer, acceptance, consideration. Today we're going to look at a famous case involving consideration that every law student learns. Imagine this. A man is dying. He loves his wife very much and wants to ensure that she will be taken care of after he passes away. He tells his friends and family that he wants his wife to be able to stay in their home. So, as he lies on his deathbed, he tells his wife that she will be able to stay in the house if she wants if he dies. Now, at first, this seems like a perfectly nice dying wish. But when his will is read, it turns out that he left everything to his wife. But then his executors, the people responsible for reading the will and carrying out his wishes, found out that the house was in negative equity, meaning they would lose money if they sold it. They didn't want to give away all of his assets and leave his widow destitute. So the executors go to Mrs. Thomas and say that she can have the house if she pays them £1 per year and takes care of any repairs. Mrs. Thomas agrees. After he died, Mrs. Thomas stayed in the house, but later the executors tried to evict her. So Mrs. Thomas sued. She argued that the agreement was a binding contract and that the executors were not following Mr. Thomas's wishes. The executors argued that there was no consideration, therefore no contract. The lower court ruled in favor of Mrs. Thomas, but the executors appealed. In 1842, the English Court of Appeals had to decide whether this agreement was a binding contract. Was this a case of a moral obligation which the law would not enforce, or was it a legally binding contract? To answer this question, we use the IRAC method to break down the case. First, we identify the issue. Then we look to the rule, apply the rule to the facts of the case, and then we reach a conclusion. So what was the issue? Well, the issue was whether the agreement was supported by consideration. In contract law, consideration is what each party gives or promises to give in exchange for the promise of the other. Each party must give something of value. The basic idea behind consideration is that the law will only enforce promises. When there is a bargain, there must be a mutual exchange of value. Otherwise, there would be no reason to enforce the promise. The rule is that contracts must be supported by consideration. Motive alone is not enough. Next, we apply the rule to the facts of the case. So the husband's motive for wanting his wife to have the house was obvious. He loved his wife and wanted her to be taken care of. But was that the consideration? No, it wasn't. The consideration was the promise to pay £1 per year and take care of the property. The motive is the reason for entering into the contract. Consideration is what you exchange for the promise of the other side. Did Mrs. Thomas's consideration meet the requirements at first glance? It might seem like the consideration was inadequate. £1 per year is a very low price for the house, but the court said that was not the point. The law only requires real consideration, no matter how small or nominal. If both parties agree that £1 per year is the value of the house, then that is what the law will enforce. The court said that it is not for the court to decide what is a fair or reasonable price. That is up to the parties to decide. All the court asks is that there is some real consideration. Even if it is only a token amount, The token amount is something of value in the eyes of the law. The court said that if Mrs. Thomas had given nothing in exchange for the promise, then the agreement would not be binding. But the fact that she promised to pay £1 per year, no matter how small a sum, was sufficient. So what was the conclusion? The court decided that the agreement was supported by consideration. Therefore, it was a binding contract. The court said that although the motive for the agreement was the husband's dying wish, the consideration was the promise to pay £1 per year. Since there was consideration, the agreement was binding. So what was the significance of this case? This case became a leading authority on the difference between motive and consideration. Law students have been learning this case for generations. Thomas versus Thomas shows us that the law does not enforce motives, but it does enforce bargains. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss our law video series.